Well, good morning, everyone. Almost good afternoon. It's almost noon here. Anyway, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 28th day of May, 2019. Well, I hope everybody had a lovely holiday. We spent it in the garden. Fortunately, the rain quit on Monday, and we were able to plant our tomatoes and some of the peppers, not all of them, but some of them, anyhow. I was going to do 18 tomato plants. I ended up doing 17 because I'm not sure where I want to put this other one. It's a vermissage tomato. I believe it's a slicer. I don't think it's the Roma. Everything else I plant is Roma tomatoes. I just like them better. I do a lot of tomato sauces and whatnot, so I just grow those. But this is a black variety, which is it looks really cool. It's got these really dark striations on the outside. I saw a cut of the fruit itself, and it's really dark. And it's just cool. I've never grown a black variety, and so I think I have 6. Yeah. One's still in the greenhouse. I planted one next to the Romas, and then the others went into the dome. And so they're a lot smaller than the others because my husband planted those seeds last. And so it was kind of a last minute, oh no, I forgot to do the black tomatoes. And so I said, well, don't do very many because you've done all these others. So, but we should have enough. Anyway, it's just the two of us. And I like to can stuff and freeze stuff for the year. So we try to grow enough for the year. We always have too much and the chickens get the rest. So they love the corn in particular. So the other thing they like frozen gluten-free zucchini bread. They do like that. And they got some watermelon the other day, which they just were in heaven over. You've never seen chickens and watermelon. It's just, they love it. They just love it. So anyhow. Well, I wrote a bit on the blog if you want to check that out. I think I have to do another one today. I think I have to do a lunar post today. Yeah, it's the 28th, so the moon may have already moved. I don't know. Maybe it moves later today. But I think it was in Aries. So we'll see what happens today when I take a look at that. We'll get the cards shuffled here and we'll get going. But I hope you had a good weekend. I did. I have to say, I did. We just got so much done, and it didn't feel like it was just enormous because we started out and then the snow hit. We had like 3 weeks of snow, couldn't do anything, and then we had to clean up all of the downed limbs and broken trees and all of that. We had to do that, so that got in the way of everything. And finally, we were able to get back to what we were supposed to be doing out in the garden area. But we had done enough, so before that happened, that we were able to not be so overwhelmed by everything. So that made this weekend's planting a lot nicer than it would have been otherwise. Usually Memorial Day weekend is just this marathon planting here. And the last couple years, I just haven't wanted to do it that way, So anyhow, it's Tuesday, so if you're going to work magic, it's a Mars day, so anything having to do with maybe impulse control, or if you're trying to manifest something important to happen, you can use Mars energy to do that. But anyway, last week, let's just go over this quickly here. We had some interactions with others that might be challenged. Let's see, higher self-awareness on Tuesday, some conflict, but higher self-awareness, moving through it with that, finding emotional fulfillment and balance energy exchange with others. And then Wednesday, we were manifesting spirit. We were in the process, focusing on the process, not the goal, creating emotional fulfillment. We had Rado was the Rune, so therefore the whole notion of process over goal. Success and unity, we had Conjunctio, the geomancy rune that day. And then on Thursday, we were manifesting new wealth, possibly. It was a 22 day. And so it was the cosmic builder, basically. It was a master number. The 22 is a master number. So maybe, hopefully, we manifested something, or maybe we're in the process of manifesting something new, hopefully to do with wealth. There was some pentacles there and some wands, but 2 cards were pentacles. We had also the 8 of wands, which is move now, make a decision, or the time was right to make a decision. Energy was right for manifestation. So, or no, that was actually Wednesday. So Thursday, we had the 5 of swords, the Empress, Justice, Yera, Laetitia, and 5. So change based on justice and the goddess presence. So that was basically what was going on last week. So let's see if we can build on that this week, or if maybe we're going to take a new direction. Well, we have the Queen of Pentacles. I love her throne. Isn't that gorgeous? So she's either, those are either alabaster mountains in the distance, or there's snow. But here she is in her garden. She's looking down at a large pentacle in her lap. You could say that that's her wealth, that's her legacy, that's her foundation, maybe. You see flowers around her. You see roses above, almost like it's a doorway or just a little oasis or a little sanctuary. The Queen of Pentacles always reminds me of that. She always reminds me of the woman who's sitting alone in her garden. You know, in this case, a queen is an older woman, and she's sitting alone in her garden, and she's just thinking about, you know, her life, her family, you know, where her life has gone. Maybe she's just grateful for the peace and quiet. I don't know. But it's a time of quiet and of respite. What I typically see with this queen. But she's benevolent, she's loving, she's kind, she's generous, she sets boundaries. People don't always like that, but because she's a queen, because she's a court card, she needs something else to interact with. So we're going to definitely draw another card. When I first started doing this series on YouTube, I was just pulling one card in one rune, and of course then I'd have this run of court cards. It's like, well, God, I have to have something for them to interact with or talk to. So it's because, you know, court cards, they can mean either the individual represented on the card, you know, a youthful person, a person who's maybe going out and about and into their life and you know, on their own quest. And then you have the queen who's the mother, you know, who's the older woman in authority. And you have the king who's a man, an older man in authority. But then they have their qualities. So it's like, okay, so we have the Queen of Pentacles. So what? You know, older woman, person in authority, you know, seeking some quiet time away to reflect. It's the earth element. So it's about our foundation and the mundane aspects of life. It's also about wealth, about income, work, legacy, ancestry, the Akashic record, even, you could say. Just depends on how far you want to go with that. Let's do another card. Well, we have the Chariot, which is about movement and balance. It's the 7th card from the Major Arcana. You see the town in the distance. And here you have the king. It's a really interesting crown, doesn't he? You see the sun up there on his crown, signifying glory. You see the moon, the 2 half moons or crescent moons on his shoulders, about emotional balance. He's holding his scepter in his right hand. You see the dreidel on the shield. You see the wings, the wing disc, basically. You see the shadow side of self and spirit, dark and light, polarity. The chariot represents when to allow and when to take the reins. Here, they're just kind of sitting there. But it's about movement and mastery. You know, and the Queen of Pentacles now, she really is about balance. I mean, if you look at the pentacle in her lap, you're talking, you know, balanced elements right there, the 4 elements plus spirit. But we need another card, don't we? And then I'm going to take a look at the grimoire on the chariot. You know, I tend to write things down when I do my research. You know, I read a lot of tarot books. I think there's a lot of really great writers out there that do this, and they've come up with some really interesting insights. You know, so I mean, some of them they're in agreement, but then you'll get this odd reference, you know. And whenever I see stuff like that, I'll jot it down because it could have something to do. You just never know. Particularly when you're looking at the cards together. If you're trying to tell a story, there could just be some weird thing that you've written down that sort of opens up the entire reading. So do keep a journal. If you're learning tarot or you practice tarot, if you practice tarot, you already keep a journal. You already keep lots of little notebooks of everything you find. So I don't need to tell you that because you already know that. But if you're learning this, if this is new to you and you're exploring tarot for your own, you know, edification and what have you, keep journals, write everything down. Don't be afraid to highlight because I'll tell you, it'll be some obscure reference that totally opens up a reading for you. Truly. Let's do a third card. And if you've not been here before, welcome. I appreciate you stopping by. And if you're coming back, thank you so much. And as you know, if you've been here before, I count to the 13th card. I take the 13th card each time because I want it to be random. I was born on the 13th. 13 figures prominently in my life, all sorts of places. I won't go into that, though I've done that before. If you're ever on my blog, you'll see what I'm all about. But anyway, that's over at imsteppingaside.com, by the way. It's called Stepping Aside, and it's a witch blog, but it's got all kinds of stuff on it. But anyway, here we have, oh, this is interesting. So it's the 4th card from the Major Arcana, and we have the Emperor. A stern-looking guy. Not really looking at us he's looking in our direction, but not really looking us in the eye. Kind of just a little bit to the right is where he's going, his right. But you see the ram's heads on the 4 of them on his throne. He's holding a scepter in his right hand again. A younger king here, perhaps, but again in his right hand. Here you have an older king. It's about power and authority and control. It can be benevolent, but most of the time, the emperor, in my estimation, needs the balance from the queen. Perhaps, you know, or the empress, I should say. But because there are some decks, such as I believe the Thoth deck and several decks, where when you look at the empress and the emperor is looking back at the empress. So it's almost like he's taking his cues from the empress, and here with just a little slight glance, just barely visible. I'm not sure what he's holding in his left hand. I can't really tell. It looks like maybe the remnants of a sunflower, possibly. Possibly. 4 is about structure, about foundation. It basically aligns well with the suit of pentacles, but it's also the suit of fire well, not fire, but of wands as well. And that's the fire element. You see that here with the oranges, don't you? And the reds. So you see a lot of fire, a lot of energy with this card, a lot of authority. But basically what I think we're trying to do here is to find our balance with that. When to take charge, like he may be doing, and when to seek a timeout or a respite. It could also be the projective and receptive side of self that you're trying to keep in balance. And it's interesting that if you look at this, and I'll hold this up, how it's laid out. The receptive side of self, there we go. The receptive side of self would be the queen. And it would be represented by the black sphinx or lion or whatever you want to call this thing that's there. So inner versus outer, inner versus external. I mean, it's almost just laid out that way, isn't it? So today, I guess what we're really looking at today, especially on a Mars day, is keeping things in balance. Let's do a rune. We're doing pretty good on time here. We should have enough time to do a geomancy rune too. But I think that this is kind of, you know, it would have been better. I would have been better if it had been the Empress first, but it doesn't matter. We still have a queen, and particularly of Pentacles. And so you're really looking at receptive versus projective aspects of self here today, and keeping all of it in balance. And understanding that, you know, we're really trying to preserve our foundation here with the four, the Emperor being the four, the Queen of Pentacles of being Pentacles. You know, you're talking foundations. So, you know, our home, our work, our career, our family life. We're trying to preserve that here. And we have Vunyo. And Vunyo, I believe, is it the 8th? Yeah, it's the 8th rune of the Elder Futhark. You can see Kenaz reversed in it. You can also see Issa. You can see, I'll draw that out for you so you understand what I'm talking about. And you also see Lagus in it. You're talking about joy and harmony and fellowship. Let me draw that out. And I can show you the components of this. It might be helpful. I'll first draw Vunyo, then I'll draw Issa, then Lagus, and then Kenaz reversed. Normally Kenaz is drawn, I'll draw it below how it's typically drawn, and then you can see the difference. You have Vunyo at the top, and then beginning over here, you have Issa, which is alignment, stillness within. The next is Lagus, which is moving around something, you know, it's flow, it's allowing. Kenaz normally is done like it is down here, and it's the torch, and it's basically spiritual enlightenment. I'm going to go back in my rune bag. And it's lighting the way, it's spirit lighting the way. But here, we reverse it, and we see it turned inward, don't we? Allowing spirit to inform who we are. And in this case, we're to manifest joy and fellowship and unity. But it can also be about the inner harmony and inner balance as well, can't it? And about having spirit inform that process as well. That's cool. Anyway, I'm going to do a geomancy rune here. I'm not going to throw it on top of my computer this time because it tends to make things happen. If I hit the key just right, we'll do it. So we have, this is going to go in the order of fire, air, water, and earth. Oh, okay. So what we have here is Cata Draconis. Now, Cata Draconis is considered evil. I don't know. It just seems like the geomancers of old weren't women. This is what Cauda Draconis looks like. It's attached to the moon's node. In this case, this is the south moon's node, I believe. Or not the south moon's node, the south node of the moon. But I better look that up. Hang on just one second while I get that book. It's right here. Let me make sure that that's actually, because that's not always clear in the older text. You're not really sure who they're assigning that to. So let's see who maybe Agrippa assigned it to. Well, let's blind myself here with my my magnifying glass. See, it has stuff on it. It has 3 really great LED lights on it. Yeah, south moon node. South moon node. No, see, I wrote it wrong. That's why I said it. It's the north. So Caput Draconis is the north node of the moon, and Cauda is the south node of the moon. It means the outer threshold, the lower kingdom, the exit, harbinger of disaster, evil, terminating affairs. Short life, not good fortune, corrupt, dangerous, self-destruction, endings, completion, letting go of past. Yeah, it's not a good thing when you draw this, but on the other hand, if you look at it just simply energetically, what you're looking at is the ending of something, basically. So, or you could look at it of if you don't remain in balance, this is what's going to happen. If we remain out of balance, if in other words, if our emperor energy gets to be too much, and it's not balanced by the Queen of Pentacles, her sensibility, her practical nature, then the emperor can go off and do weird things, right, and get himself into trouble. He talks when he shouldn't. He maybe commands things to happen that shouldn't. He can be completely clueless and go out there running around, running amok. Whenever they're having the shadow side of self out in full force, and that can happen. Power corrupts. It just does, and absolute power corrupts what absolutely is at the same. With Vunyo, what it's telling us, though, is that the light has to shine inward. And then from there, we need to express that joy and fellowship to all, and to see all as part of the greater aspect of self. And in doing so, see, then you keep things in balance. You express the chariot instead of struggling against, the little guys in front. You're allowing that respite, that balance, because see, they're even in respite, aren't they? They're not going anywhere. They're just all sitting there. And they're basically doing the same thing the Queen is, maybe in contemplation of where they've been and where they need to go. The emperor can either foster all of that, or he can get in the way. And they get in the way when things are not in balance, when they cannot express the compassionate side of self, when they cannot express reason, when they cannot express balance, when they don't live in truth. Then you have an emperor that needs to go, basically. Can't handle the power that he has because he has no foundation for it. He does not represent the Vunyo within, in other words, whereas the Queen, on the other hand, does. And so with the chariot and being the 7, the 7 is structurally, visually as scales, a set of scales with 3 and 3 as the pans, and then, the 7th being in the middle. As the resting point. So in a way, the Queen is that centerpiece balancing the scales. You can see it sort of visually represented here with the king doing the same thing, and with the 2 guys down here, being the pans of the scales, being in balance, staying in balance. The emperor tries. And here, if that is indeed a sunflower in his left hand, then that's will. You could say that's will. And then the scepter he holds, strength. So will in balance with strength. So that's a delicate balance. That's a fine line to walk. And with Caput here, with Caput Dracona, or not Caput, but Cauda Draconis here, I don't know. You're going to be having that sense of, because the other thing about Caput Draconis, or not Caput, but Cauda Draconis, see, now I'm in that loop, aren't I? About Cauda Draconis is the fact that it's almost like it's over. You've given up. You've given up trying. You've given up trying to be in balance. You've just sort of let it all go. Okay. You risk that when you don't stay in that alignment with self, when you don't let spirit inform all of that process, then you risk simply being on the outer threshold of things instead of in balance and participating in the collective consciousness of this whole unified creation, this whole unified consciousness. So interesting. So numerologically today it's a 1. 28 reduces to 1. Well, it reduces to 10 and then to 1. So you're looking at new beginnings anyway. So as we come away from this great weekend where we remembered, I live with the veterans, so I think I talked about that. I think that was the last thing I posted even, was something about random something or other and a husband who continues to serve, I think is what I called it. Anyway, it's the most recent one on the blog over at imsteppingaside.com if you want to check that out. If you have people like that in your life, honor them, because they sacrifice so much, and we never understand if we're not there with them, if we're not in their lives at that time, we don't understand what that is. We really don't. But they do, and they do it all over again. So I'm going to tell you, our veterans, they're amazing people. They're just amazing people. So hopefully you got to spend a day with a veteran yesterday, like I did. He cooked me roast on the grill. So anyhow, yes, he cooks. Anyhow, we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Thank you so much for coming by. Remember to try to stay in balance today, keeping everything, letting spirit inform the whole process, and make that a wonderful start to the week. We'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another, and blessed be.